I am Andy Pace, and this morning's Kid Spot is brought to you by science. This morning's topic, density. What is density? Density is just how much matter is packed into something. It's how much something weighs compared to how big it is. So if I had a big old styrofoam block this big, I could toss it up into the air because it's not very dense. But if it were the same size block made of, say, steel, then it would be so heavy that I could hardly. I could lift that, but if I wanted to, but I've got to do this. No, I couldn't because it's too dense. So density also applies to liquids. So up here, I've got some ordinary household water in some beakers, and I'm just going to add some food coloring to each one, just so you can tell the difference between them. They're still just ordinary household water. Now, but what I am going to do is I'm going to add some salt to the blue water. Now, I don't know if you can see this from where you are, but maybe with a black background. All right, so you'll have to take my word for it. The salt actually fell to the bottom of the beaker because it's more dense than water. If it were less dense than water, it would have floated on top because that's how density works. Okay, so now I'm going to stir up this water, this salt water, and dissolve the salt so it kind of becomes part of the water. So from now on, when I say blue water, I mean salt water. When I say yellow water, still just ordinary household water. All right, here we go. Now, so you can see it better, I'm going to pour it into this graduated cylinder. All right, there's the salt water. And now I'm going to add this ordinary household yellow water on top. I've got to do this really slowly or it won't work. So, I'm going to tell you what would happen. If it were two regular kinds of water that were dyed two different colors, what you would expect to see is the two colors would mix, and you'd be left with this big mess of green water. But you may even be able to begin to see that's not what's happening here. Instead, what we have is blue water staying on the bottom, and the yellow water is staying on top of the blue water. Why is that happening? Because of density. Because the salt water is more dense than the regular old water, so the blue salt water stays at the bottom, and the yellow salt water stays at the top. And science. All right. So, the science is great and all, but why are we doing this in the middle of a church service? Good question. So, here's the picture. The picture is, there's an idea that's echoed throughout the New Testament, and the idea is this, that we should be in the world, but not of it. We live in the world, but we shouldn't be like the world. We shouldn't look exactly like it. So, just like this blue water is clearly separate, the salt water is clearly separate from the yellow water. If I hold it up, you can clearly see the difference, and that's because of the salt, which is a whole nother day. But when we go out and interact in the world, we should look different as followers of Christ than the rest of the world. Someone might watch you and say, wait a minute, you're a Christian, aren't you? Why would they say that? Because of, well, maybe because of the way you talk is different, or the way you act is different, or maybe just because of the way you make decisions is different, because of what's important to you. So, let me encourage you to do two things this week. One, get into your kitchen and play with liquids, with your parents' permission. Get into your kitchen and play with some liquids. I recommend honey, corn syrup, dish soap, alcohol, rubbing alcohol, kids. Woo. The 71% rubbing alcohol even. Play around with different liquids and make your own density column. Oh, and drop solid objects in there. That's fun too. We didn't have time for that this morning. But the other thing I encourage you to do, and probably more important, is as you live in the world this week, don't be of the world. Don't be like it. Let your words and your actions and your choices set you apart, make you look different from the rest of the world in a way that glorifies God. Thanks.